So I am here with Dave. We are at SOE Live. We have just revealed EQ Next. So Dave, let me just ask you real quick, how does it feel to finally get that off your chest? You're finally able to talk about the game.
We finally get to take the door scanners off and show everybody else what we're actually doing. It's a phenomenal feeling. I mean, we've kept the secret for a long time. There's like, the 60, 70 of us building the game, and we've been really careful about not leaking anything. And now we get to finally talk about it, and it's very cool.
Perfect. So I'm going to start with the first question is why do we need EQ Next? We have EverQuest is still out there. There's EverQuest 2. Why did you feel you need to have a third game? What is the role behind why do we need EverQuest Next?
Well, it's kind of funny. When we first started building EverQuest Next, it was actually EverQuest 3. And it was a lot like the other MMOs. And that was one of the reasons why we stopped it and restarted the project, was because we didn't need to do that again. We already had EverQuest and EverQuest 2. The world just didn't need another version of that same game. So we wanted to build something that was completely different. And, well, we did. So that's why we put in all those big ideas and massaged it into a shape that nobody'd ever seen before.
Yeah, so that kind of goes in with the sandbox idea. A lot of games these days are saying, we're going to do the whole sandbox deal. What does sandbox mean to you, and how does EverQuest Next fit into that?
Well, a sandbox is basically a world in which players can not only affect what's going on in the world, but they can forge their own destiny and create the character the way that they want to play it. I've made lots of sandbox games in my past, including paper games way back when, and I really love that kind of game, and so does everybody on our team. And so when we set out to build that, we did it for a couple of reasons. One of them was so that people could forge their own destiny, like what we were saying. But the other one is because we imagined, and I think we're right about this, that the social community will really enjoy it, because basically they can create any kind of adventure kind of experience that they want to. They can decide what they want to go do, and then the world will react to them. We wanted much more of a the roots of everything that go with a role-playing game are D&D, right? It goes way back in time, where you have this interactivity back and forth between the players and the GM. What we wanted to do was set the world up so it was the GM. And then as the players start doing their own thing, the world reacts to what they've done and changes the world around them to match what they were trying to do. And that kind of experience was the core of where we were going when we started building EverQuest Next.
Yeah, playing off that, you're going to have destructible environments, which when you first mentioned it during the keynote, I was like, I don't know, can you do that? Like, it just seems so difficult. But how does that kind of play a role in the game?
Well, we have two major R&D, technical R&D elements in the game. One of them is building the whole world out of voxels in a persistent environment, which is the destructibility. And the other one is the AI, the emergent AI system. The way that we're doing AI is completely different. And the reason why we did all that stuff was because of that intent to make the world so that it could be changeable, so that people could discover their own destiny, and because blowing stuff up is really fun.
In the end, blowing stuff up is awesome.
That's just really what it boils down to. It's like when we first started out and we were serious about making the game different, we embraced that idea of permanent change. That was the core. And as we started trying to figure out how we could do it, we figured out rallying calls, and that's where we started pursuing the different way of doing AI. The destructibility came in mostly because, well, if the whole world was changeable, then why not make it changeable on a visceral moment-to-moment level and make that gameplay really exciting, and so that's why we did it.
So going into, we'll talk about a little about progression. How does a character progress? I've heard it's not traditional leveling. It's not like I start level 1, I get up to level 60, and I'm good to go. How does the progression go in the game?
Well, instead of having vertical progression like we're used to with levels and stuff, where abilities and stuff unlock as you kill stuff and get experience, what we're doing instead is we're tracking everything that you do in the world. And as you mature as a character, as you start overcoming different objectives, talking to different players, exploring different worlds, we unlock a tier system. And what that tier system does, it's not just a semantic difference. It's not just levels with a different name. What it does is it unlocks your ability to horizontally progress. So instead of vertical progression, we have horizontal progression, which means that the more that you adventure, the more stuff you can unlock to make your character more and more flexible and more adaptable to the situations around you. One of the scenarios that I like to run through is, let's say you and I go out and we're fighting, and we get our butts kicked. It happened.
It happens.
So now we regroup and we're trying to figure out how to go back in there and fight that fight again. Well, I have a bunch of classes and you have a bunch of classes, and every class has different weapons. So we can talk about all the different abilities that we have. We have all these different loadouts that we've saved out because we've collected all those classes and mixed and matched all our character abilities. Essentially, we should be able to figure something out that has a good chance of being able to beat that fight. And that kind of gameplay, that's fun. That's where you're mixing and matching back and forth and figuring out how to overcome those obstacles instead of just being stuck with that kind of, well, we're stuck. We got to get more people, that kind of stuff. I'm losing track of the question.
I mean, it was well thought out. We'll go to something like social interaction. Now, when I played EverQuest, the main reason I played for so long and for so often was because of my guildmates. I played for years with them, and then kind of when people stopped playing is kind of when I kind of died off. Now, for guilds, like, is there anything special you have planned, or how can we talk about that?
Well, we're definitely going to have friends lists and guilds and all the things that you're used to from MMOs, because those are really, really important to our game. If you don't have social interaction, you don't have an MMO. You just got a flash in the pan kind of game, and it's gonna spike and fail. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that players talk to each other, and one of the ways that we're doing that is by embracing the crafting elements in the game. Crafters, because they're crafters, are not necessarily the social glue. But crafting by itself, because of what it is, of creating something that other players want, attracts a certain kind of personality. And the people that are attracted to that personality typically are the social glue of MMOs. They're the people that settle disputes between other players and organize guilds and get raids going and all that other stuff. Not always, but a lot of times it's true. And so what we're doing is we're making sure that crafting is a big part of the game so that players will constantly want to talk to people that are involved in crafting, and that there's a real advantage to doing so. And in our hope is that will promote that social glue, and we'll start to get those really cool guilds going with lots and lots of friendships so that our game lasts 10, 15, 20 years like the other games we have.
Right. Yeah. People still play EverQuest. And then quickly more about player-created content. You announced the EQ Next Landmark. Now, when I originally saw it, it was you're kind of mixing a little bit of like Minecraft where people can create everything, but you've taken it a whole next level. You can, carve out, instead of just huge blocks, boom, block, you can actually take that a whole step further. And it goes along with people able to buy and sell items. How did that, was it from popularity of Minecraft that you kind of wanted to add that into the game?
Well, I mean, obviously we like Minecraft, right? I mean, it was one of those things. I've played Minecraft a lot. I owe Notch a lot for some of the ideas that he came up with. But when we started figuring out what we wanted to do as far as being able to build a voxel world, that's where it all started to come from. So when we started to assemble the idea of building a voxel world, we had to make these special tools, and the tools ended up being every bit as much fun as what we'd done on Minecraft. And because we had these persistent worlds, the development team was constantly one-upping each other and showing off to each other about the cool thing that they created last night. And we realized that players would want to do that too. So, that's what we settled in on doing, and that kind of snowballed and got bigger and bigger as an idea until we realized that if we could create persistent worlds that players wanted to, they could create on, and it would be there for a while, and it was really easy to show off to each other. You didn't have to create YouTube videos and stuff like that to be able to do that. If you could show off like time-lapse, videos to each other and be able to do all that crazy kind of stuff on a just like an ad hoc basis, that would be a cool world. And when you add in guilds and chat and all the MMO features that you'd expect from a regular persistent world, and you add it into that kind of stuff, it's a gaming experience you've never had before. So it became worthwhile of making that its own game, and that's why we have EverQuest Next Landmark.
So players will be able to create stuff and they'll go into the game. Is that going to come with like regular updates, or can like whole towns be created by players, or is it a little bit minor than that?
Oh no. When we're talking about Landmark?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we're talking about Landmark, you go out there with your claim flag and you stake that claim, and you can build anything you want to in that area. But I could set permissions so that you could build with me on my claim. We could link our claims together, and you can build these like massive co-op builds if you want to. So if players want to build that player-run town, absolutely. We absolutely support that. We'd love to see it. I mean, the theory is we have a professional development team. We have a lot of people that know how to put these worlds together, and we're going to build some really great content. But if 1 million people come and play Landmark, and 10% of them try to make something, and 10% of them actually finish it, and 10% of that is actually cool, that's still 1,000 people making stuff for the game. And we could build phenomenal worlds if people want to get on board and help us to build the next virtual world. And that's really the key behind Landmark. We love the idea of being able to build EverQuest Next with the community and be able to have the players involved every step of the way, so that when we get to EverQuest Next launch, it's their world as much as ours.
So you're going to take a lot of players' feedback into consideration.
Oh, hell yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we, yeah, heck yeah. We wanted, right away, I don't know if it's up today or not, but very, very soon, we'll have this thing we call, what are we calling it? Anyway.
It's kind of like the roadmap for PlantSide 2, right?
Like roadmap for plants, a round table. So we're going to have this round table feature. And the round table is basically, we're going to open up discussions that we want the players to be involved with. And we're going to listen to those things and adjudicate the whys and the wherefores and stuff like that, and try to come up with solutions to any kind of problems that they pose. Because, well, that's one of the reasons why we're not announcing a release date for EverQuest Next. We know what date we want to ship it on internally, but we're not announcing a date because we're very serious about, as Landmark gets built, as the players start playing with the ideas inside Landmark, as we develop things for EverQuest Next and introduce them to Landmark, we'll be reacting to what they've done and deciding what's good and what's not, and then we'll be changing the way EverQuest Next is actually created, and we need to have a flexible end date, so that's why we're not announcing a date.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dave. We look forward to seeing everything you have for EQ Next.
Thanks. Appreciate it.